He has also worked in Australia and Portugal. He is currently engaged in several international cannabis cultivation projects, providing guidance on GACP-compliant medical cannabis cultivation. So let's welcome Shlomo Booklin from Juicy Fields. Welcome.
Bom dia, eu vou tentar falar inglês. Yeah, my name is Shlomo, and I've been growing plants for the last 30-something years. But before I start, I want to talk a little bit about COVID and medication. So, thank you. Some of you remember, I don't know if we can even forget, that, a year ago, 2 years ago, we had lockdown. The first lockdown, the second lockdown, everything was shut down, maybe supermarket, petrol station, pharmacies. And in Canada, Toronto, we also had dispensaries open. And everyone in the cannabis industry was so proud that, wow, dispensaries are open during COVID. It must be important. So, yes, it's important, and it's open just like pharmacies because it's medicinal. And this is double-edged sword. Because if we important as medicinal, and we open during COVID just like the pharmacies, we should apply the same standard to ourselves. And basically, this is what I'm going to talk today. So, we spoke, my dear friend, colleague Steven spoke earlier today about regulation. Luna spoke yesterday about lack of regulation. We spoke about the lack of harmonized in Europe between countries. So this is basically why I wanted to talk. I'm agronomist, like I said, for the last 35 years. I only do commercial and growing and cultivation. I am not really into the marketing. I'm not into the financing. I am just agronomist. So I'm looking at growing from the regulation point of view. And basically, we have the GACP. GACP is basically good agriculture and collecting practice. It's been originally written by the World Health Organization in 2002. And it's been revised again by the EMA, the European Medicinal Agency, in 2012. And basically, it gives the guideline on how to grow and cultivate medicinal plant. And cannabis as a medicinal plant fall under that umbrella. So the talk will be GAC, why, and how. So why is, if we're looking at what happened in places like Canada, of course, Israel, Switzerland recently, and other places, if you want to buy cannabis, whether recreational or medicinal, you have to buy it in a specific place. Either a dispensary, like we said earlier, or in a pharmacies. And we cannot expect that pharmacies will have black market product next to the pharmaceutical product. So if we looking at selling this product that we grow, we have to comply with minimum standard. And again, we talked about regulation, what will happen in Germany, how the European regulation will affect, etc. I fairly confident that the minimum standard will be GACP. And if you want to sell your product, whether it's in Portugal, whether it's in dispensary in Amsterdam, or whether it's in pharmacies in Switzerland, you will have to comply with at least GACP and most probably GMP, but we won't go into GMP yet. GMP is basically pharmaceutical standard. But let's assume that, like I said, and I'm fairly confident that the minimum standard will be the GACP. If you won't meet those standards, you won't be able to have your product anywhere, nowhere on the shelf. So this is why. How is the biggest question is how do we apply pharmaceutical standard on botanical crop? So we have tomatoes, right? And we have ketchup. We know that ketchup made of tomatoes. We won't tell you how to grow the tomatoes, but the ketchup has to comply with some standard. With cannabis it's a little bit different because we can use not only the ketchup, we can also use the flowers itself, the cannabis buds. So again, we have to tell you, or we have standard that we have to meet when we're talking about how to grow it. So it's not just like the tomatoes and the ketchup. So, like I said, the main thing is how we apply pharmaceutical guidelines on a botanical crop. And we have a bridge. It's the 25 d'Avril, just around the corner there. So you see that you have two. It's not like Vasco da Gama. It's a smaller bridge. So we have two pillars to that bridge, which is on one side, like you see over there, we have the botanical crop. The main pillar will be GACP, and you have to cross the second pillar, which is GMP, and then you'll get to the pharmaceutical product or pharmaceutical grade. And again, if we're looking at production flow, you can see that anywhere from the mother room, the propagation, the growing room, whether you have 1, 10, or 15, or whatever, until the harvest, it goes under the GACP. And then there's an overlap of the two section or the two round red circle. You have the primary processing under GACP still, but as soon as it goes into the dry room, you have this transition between the GACP and GMP. Then it goes into dry room. If you have the final product as a dry product, then of course it goes into the storage and shipping. If you have extraction, then it goes from the dry room into the extraction. Then you have the final product, and the same thing, the storage and distribution. So this is basically the production flow, and of course we can go into details in much more each one of them, but like my friend Alfredo spoke earlier this morning about the convention, the single convention, we have the GACP, which is the pizza, and around the pizza there is the crust. Obviously, it's not here, which is the regulation, which is cannabis considered to be a controlled substance. So that's the crust around the pizza. But we're talking about the pizza now because we're talking about GACP and the single convention and all things that are related to the controlled substance are not part of the GACP or the EMA regulation. So we have a couple of things. To make life a little bit easier, and I don't have that slides here, but imagine that we can divide those pizza before we slice it to 16 or 12 slices. We can divide that pizza for 4 quarters. So 1 quarter will be sanitation. The second quarter will be quality. The third quarter will be production. And the fourth quarter will be a record keeping. So sanitation, it's kind of straightforward. We don't want our medication to be done on on the floor of the fish market in Jakarta. Trust me, I've been there, it's not clean. So when we have a product that is pharmaceutical grade or GACP grade, we want to make sure that there's sanitation, whether of the employees or the facility, has a minimum standard. So it's kind of, we take it for granted. When I swallow antibiotics, again, I trust that this meets some kind of standard. The second quarter, like I said, is quality. So quality, again, it's kind of straightforward. We want to make sure that the product that I use is high quality, it's efficient, it's been safe, it's ready to use, and it's meet the standard that it's actually good to be considered as medication. The third part of the pizza, I'm already in the party stage. The third part of the pizza is the production. So that's basically everything that goes from the seeds to the cultivation, to the harvest, primary of processing, and everything that I showed in the previous slides about the whole production. And then, like I said, the quality assurance is the second part. The hygiene and the building and the equipment is also part of the quality. The last important part, which is not as, it's important just like anything else. I don't know how many of you know the Khalil Gibran. He's an author from the early 90s. He's from Lebanese origin, and he's basically the Mediterranean version of La Fontaine. So he wrote short stories, and in one of the stories he said there was a tree in the forest, and every part of the tree wanted to make sure that they are the most important part. So the trunk said, I am the most important part because I carry all my trees on my back, and without me, you're nothing. The root said, no, we are the most important stuff because without us, we make sure that the tree is standing tall, we provide food and nutrition for everything, we are the most important. The branches, of course, agree with the trunk because they also carry the weight. And then the leaves said, no, we are the most important. We do the photosynthesis, we are providing shade, of course we are the most important. And the flowers said, come on, well, of course we are the most important. We're so elegant, we have the perfume, we make sure that, the next generation, and so on. So the fruit said, no, we are the most important because without us there's no continuation to the seeds, etc. Obviously, they couldn't agree who's more important, and they all striked, and the tree died. So, like I said, it's not more important or less important. They're all equally important. You have good quality product. You have good hygiene. You have excellent facility and propagation and everything. If you don't have the record keeping, you're nothing. You might have, shitty products, very good sanitation, etc. Excellent record keeping, but again, if your quality is not there, then you maybe need to change your profession. So again, those four elements are intertangled that you cannot really say one is less important than the others. So this is where the four elements of the GACP comes together, and of course here they divide it into the 12, because this is, if you look at the EMA regulation of, like I said, of GACP, it's divided into those 12 subtitle. So, you know, that's, like I said, the breakdown is basically the four elements of the GACP, which is quality, sanitation, production, and record keeping. The general, of course, you have to describe what is your location. If you want to do the application, you have to make sure that the land registration and it's properly for your facility. You have to get the municipality authorization to have this facility on that particular plot of land. You have, of course, to have the building permit to build the facility. And another point that regulator looking into, especially if we're talking about Infamed, is how the security and how is, for example, the proximity to the police station, etc., to make sure that, you know, you're within normal reach. The quality, like I said, you have to have the qualification. So every facility should have a qualified person that do the, you know, authorize the release of the final product. And every, you have to have lab testing, which is basically, we call it certificate of analysis. So when you have a batch, you have to send it to a lab. A lab will test it and it'll give you a certificate of analysis. That certificate of analysis will say how much percent of THC, how much percentage of CBD, CBN, terpene profile, etc., etc. With that, assuming that you want to go to Germany, you present that COA, the certificate of analysis, to your importer in Germany. They request an import permit. You'll get the export permit from Infamed, and you get the permit to ship that specific batch. And of course, you need to do the batch validation, but we won't go into this thing. The other point is, you know, you want to have, and Robert, my colleague earlier mentioned that the fact that we need to have some sort of personal availability to do this properly, and he was talking about Poland, etc. So of course you need to have the personnel. The building, like I said, it's again you need to have the sanitation. Like I said, then the equipment for, you know, you need to have a bucker, twister, etc., etc. And documentation, again, it's the log for everything, or batch record, etc. The last important, of course, the seeds, origin of seed, and for the phytosanitary import permit, etc. It's important. Stability, of course, is very important. And that leads me to the next point, which again, it's important, and I hope that the time will permit us to cover it. When we started, we, or as a humankind, started with the automobile industry in early 1900s, 1920, 1930, or 1890, etc., we had more than 2,000 companies that produce cars. 2,000. Of course, today we can remember, I don't know, 5. Toyota, Subaru, Renault, Volvo, but 2,000 cars or 2,000 manufactured car we had during the early 1900s. Henry Ford decided to do a production line. So every car that he made was consistent. And that's why Ford became such a major force in the car industry, because they are the first to implement a production line that you build those facilities again in labor. It was very, you save a lot of labor. And of course, the end product will be always the same result. So the consistency, and again, my colleagues all around what we heard the last 2 days is the lack of consistency. So the consistency is very, very important. And the consistency we can only get if we apply SOPs. So, when we look in at, McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Hilton or Starbucks, whether you go to Starbucks in Manila, Tokyo, obviously not Moscow anymore, but Amsterdam, Toronto, New York, it's always the same. Before you get to be a barista at Starbucks, you go and read 2 weeks or the SOPs on how to make coffee or how to make latte. We have to have the same standard in production, that if we do the same thing with the same genetics, and we will get the same results. So this is the consistency that, like I said, Henry Ford figured out in the 1930s, and the Starbucks today, and the Hilton. Again, if you go to the Hilton, again, whether it can be Sydney, Australia, New Zealand, Los Angeles, or, Vancouver, even the music in the elevator is the same. So the consistency is extremely, extremely important, and that's why we have to follow really, really strict SOPs in order to get the consistency and the stability. And that's, again, goes back to the seeds, right? So if we have the same genetics and we continue with the same genetics, and we do the same condition, humidity, irrigation, fertilizer, etc., we will get this very similar results, and that will create us, that will give us the next stage of where Ford with the car industry did many years ago. So we need to comply on that. The cultivation, like I said before, it's straightforward. The harvest, again, you have to have it by batches, not to mix up. You have to wait. What is the wet weight? What is the dry weight, etc. I know I spoke a little bit too much, so let's have question and answers. Please. I knew I'd break something.
I am sorry. Here I am. Questions and answers are open.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So that
There,
okay.
right over there.
Okay.
It's not work. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. I would like to make a question, and first of all, thank you very much for all the information. I can see lots of people talking about the outdoor production when the market is only legal for medical purpose. I know Portugal has amazing weather conditions for outdoor production, but I can see also in other regions in the planet with the same solar exposure, but still doing indoor production. What is your opinion about indoor production comparing to outdoor production? And since we have a medical market, what is the purpose of doing outdoor production when we can control and have the stability, the consistency, the quality of doing indoor production? Thank you.
It's a very good question and a very valid question. Like I said, I am growing plants for the last 30 years, and for me, the bottom line is the most important. If you're not profitable, we're not a charity organization, so we have to be profitable. Obviously, in Portugal, and I've been in Portugal many years, that's why I speak Portuguese. Obviously, in Portugal, you have amazing weather. You have amazing sun. I remember even in January, February, I couldn't go to the beach in Setúbal. So you don't have it anywhere else. So the sun and the light is definitely one major factor. Obviously, we have a relatively low production cost in terms of labor. Labor is normally consists of 55% of your cost. So, you know, I'm Canadian, I'm proud to be Canadian, but there's a reason why we don't grow mango in Canada. I mean, summer for us, some people say it is 7 weeks of bad ski. So, I mean, again, we don't grow mango and avocado in Canada because of the same reason. It's not financially feasible. You have all those reasons to do it in Portugal. In respect to your second part of the question, why indoor and outdoor, it's same and not the same. So again, if you have greenhouse that you can control everything, including the humidity and everything, why not have the light for free?
His question is regarding the main purpose.
Yeah, well, again, if you meet the standard, if you meet the standard of the GACP and GMP, the client wouldn't ask you if you grow it indoor or outdoor. They will say if it's meet the standard, it's okay. So it comes down to the cost.
Okay.
Thank you.
And your personal opinion, by the way?
Of course, again, as a agronomist, I think there's nothing like sun. And plants and sun have been together for the last 50 million years. They've done it before it came to the world, and they will continue to do it after. So, you know, you have LED, you have all kind of lights, but it's artificial. I think there's nothing like the symbiotic that we have for the last, I don't know, 50, 100 million years between plants and sun.
Thank you. Another question? Anyone? Please raise your hand if it's the case.
Some people promise me very hard question, and I think they shy.
That will do it after, in a more reserved way.
Okay.
So an applause, please, for Shlomo. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.